Hello, BookTube. As you know, November looms large on the calendar, and November is a big, busy month for events here on YouTube and out in the broader world. Of course, November is the home of Nonfiction November, a gigantic, venerable event from the mighty Olive at a book Olive, the queen of our proceedings, where we are shifting the focus from where it lies most of the time on BookTube, which is fiction, the made-up stories, to nonfiction, where it rightly belongs. We'll be doing that in the month of November, and that's a big deal. Another thing that's happening in November is not strictly YouTube related, although there are a billion YouTube videos, and that is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, is in November, when hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, in almost every country in the world, drop what they're doing in order to conduct a mad experiment, in order to try to write 50,000 words of a novel's first draft in 1 month. That happens in November, and I'm assuming, insert stern gaze here, that you're all going to join me for both of those things. I'm assuming that that's true. But there's one other thing. There's one other BookTube event that it's a fledgling event. This is its very first year, but it has enormous potential, and that is New Worlds November. A little event that I have the honor to be one of the hosts, that at its heart celebrates science fiction. This is an event that is designed to celebrate science fiction, a kind of reading that a lot of readers have loved at one point or another in their life, and with varying degrees of intensity. And Nonfiction November, in future years, is going to have many iterations. It's going to take many forms. It has a long list of great co-hosts. I will list them all down below. But for the year of 2021, the form it's taking is short fiction, short stories, and novellas. Now, you can participate in nonfiction in New Worlds November by reading science fiction. Right? you could participate by reading science fiction and telling your hosts all about it. But the focus that we're doing, if you really want to get on board for this November, is short stories, which are really the birth of science fiction. I know if you look back, you will find 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and The War of the Worlds, and you will think, okay, so science fiction was born in novels. And it kind of sort of was, but oh my, no. That would be a false impression. I don't think there's any science fiction fan, aficionado, expert who wouldn't rank the short story as the genuine birth laboratory of the genre of science fiction. That's really where it was born. I don't think you can say the same thing about fantasy, unless you're saying that modern fantasy as we know it today was kicked off by Robert E. Howard, churning out one Conan short story after another. There's an argument to be made for that. But fantasy has become largely synonymous with the word epic, which is novel, which means a novel. You can't do an epic fantasy in a short story. But science fiction? No. Science fiction has been churning out millions of short stories for the whole of its 100-year lifespan. And that's what we're concentrating on for New Worlds November 2021. We have some prompts. Again, you don't have to read short stories I keep saying Nonfiction November. You're still involved in Nonfiction November, but you don't have to read short stories for New Worlds November. We'd like you to. Myself and the other hosts would like you to. There's a lot of wonder there to be found. Any science fiction that you celebrate in the month will be fine. And you also don't have to follow prompts for the short stories that you do read, but we do have prompts, and they're very general. They are aliens, time travel, AI, artificial intelligence or robots, that sort of thing, and dystopian or post-apocalyptic, those themes. And I would be willing to bet that any science fiction anthology volume that you were to find anywhere that did not have a theme of its own, if the theme of the volume is dystopian futures, then maybe not. But if the thing doesn't have an overriding theme, if it's just a general collection of short stories for a year or even an author, I'd be willing to bet that in any science fiction anthology of any length, all four of those things will be represented. You won't have to go hunting far and wide. But it's I'm inviting, this is my announcement video, my official announcement. I'm not doing a TBR for New Worlds November because I'm going to read a lot of science fiction in November. I do have a TBR theme for New Worlds November in 2021. I'm going to go back and look at the short stories that were published in Asimov's and Analog and the Magazine of Science Fiction and Fantasy throughout the year of 2021. I'm going to jump around from issue to issue and highlight some of those stories and some of the things that they talk about, some of the things they do that I like or don't like. And I'll use those as a focal point to talk about science fiction short short stories just in general. That'll be my focus. I'm not going to pull down any anthologies off the shelf. I'm not going to do anything like that. But I don't have a TBR, obviously, of the stories that the specific stories that I'm going to look at. But it's about the hunting that I wanted to make this video. This is an announcement video that I'm urging you to sign up for New Worlds November. I think the Voxer group is open to people who want to just talk about their short stories. I don't know if we're going to create some sort of Discord for people to just pop on and off. I don't know any of that stuff. We still have time to figure that all out. But you can always email me. And I want you to email me about one other thing as well, because I don't want anybody to be stopped from Nonfiction November by a lack of resources. And some of you may be stopped for a lack of resources. Now, I don't know. It's been my honor over the last few years to receive hundreds of emails a week from all of you. I leave my email on every video, and I urge you to email me, not just about books, but about anything you want. I field questions or just provide a listening ear for long, rambling emails about irritating family members, irritating friends, problems in marriages, 1,000 dog questions, in addition to everything about books. And over the course of those years in those emails, I've got a strong impression from a lot of you that a lot of you live in what I can only refer to as book deserts, where you might have a public library, but it might not be any good, might not have a whole lot of selection or a ton of waiting lists, or might be an inconvenient distance from you, and that the situation is often even worse for bookstores. First of all, I think we can largely rule out big retail bookstores. Books are just too expensive. That itself is a crime and a blasphemy. But it's nevertheless true. If you don't walk into a new bookstore with a spare $50 in your pocket, you're not going to walk out with much. And who does that? So what we're talking about really here, if your library is a dud and a new bookstore is out of the question, then what we're talking about here is your secondhand book world. Now, an infinity of secondhand book riches are available online, theoretically. You could go to the Amazon marketplace, you could go to places like eBay or things like that. But the places where the books you get are new condition remainders, new books basically marked down by the publisher, will be pricey. And the places where you can go that will get used books will often be duplicitous. You look on eBay, Shawn D. Standfast is one of our hosts for New Worlds November, and he has, on his channel, made many videos about the horrors of the outright deceit practiced by sellers on, for instance, eBay. And it's no better on Amazon Marketplace, where the seller will say the book may have a little obnoxious, bright neon highlighting. You email them and say, well, what do you mean may have? Aren't you looking at it? And they say, no, it's in a warehouse across town, but I'm pretty sure that it has no highlighting. You say, all right, I'll take a chance. You plunk your $5, you get the book, and it's covered in highlighting. And the seller certainly knows that. They don't have a warehouse across town. They were looking right at it. They're just lying to you. Plenty of you know that those infinite resources online exist, but you quite naturally don't want to take advantage of them. They're dicey at best. At least half the money that you spend will probably end up being wasted. And the sellers know that. They know that for a $3 purchase, you're probably not going to go through the rigmarole of returning the book. It's a shame that that's the way it is, but in marketplaces like that, human cupidity is on prime display, which leaves secondhand bookshops, charity shops, and used bookstores. And when it comes to charity shops and used bookstores, so many of you have told me that you don't have anything. Nothing at all. That you don't have a used bookstore within 50 miles of you. That the one that you do is more antiquarian, the stock never changes, and it's way too expensive. And that you might have a charity shop of some kind or other, and they do a booming business in soiled hoodies, but the books hardly ever change, and they're in terrible shape, and they're not sorted, and they're bad. Many, many, many of you have told me stories like that. And that's partly what this video is for, because that is not my case. Here in Boston, I have access to an unending fire hose spigot of books of all kinds of descriptions. If you've been watching this channel, then you know that, because I do use book hauls every week. But I see 5 times as much as I show you. So I want to make an offer for New Worlds November. We still have plenty of time, even with the degraded U.S. postal system. Just in the last 2 days, the U.S. postal system was just degraded. They didn't do it privately. They just announced it. It was a news cycle day. It was a news item for the day, because they know they're immune to public outcry. So the U.S. Postal Service has just downgraded its services and increased its prices. But even so, this is just, what, the 3rd or 4th of October? that still gives us plenty of time for November, so I want to put an offer on the table that if you want me to send you a science fiction anthology, I will gladly do so if you live in the United States. There's no way in the world that I'm going to spend $75 to put a book in the mail to you in Uruguay just so that it doesn't reach you. Just recently, I sent a book to Mexico City, and it arrived just perfectly and faster than I was told it would get there. But that was one success story, and for every one success story, I have 50 stories where the book just never shows up, where it disappears. And I don't want to waste the money on that one. So I'm sorry, if you're overseas, you're going to have to sink or swim on your own. But if you're in the United States, which I don't know how to look at my BookTube analytics, and I don't want to know how to look at my BookTube analytics. Your analytics should not be governing anything that you do on your channel. But if I did know how to look at my analytics and I did it, I'd be willing to bet that 90% of my audience at least is in the United States. So if you are in the United States, I want to make you an offer if your situation is bad or dire, or even if you're just looking for something different. I will happily get you and send you a science fiction anthology in the mail in time for New World's November. Now, I'm not going to hunt around for anything specific. There are some science fiction anthologies that I dearly love, but I'm not going to do that because that takes time. If you live in one of the book deserts that I'm describing, just sing out. My email is right down below. Just email me, and I will grab the next big, fat, generous science fiction anthology that I find and pop it in the mail to you. Chances are that you don't have to follow any of the prompts for nonfiction for New World's November, and if you want to, you don't have to follow them all. But chances are any big science fiction anthology will have all 4 of those prompts. So I want to make my end as simple as possible. So I'm not going to go looking for specific books. I'm not going to go hunting through tables of contents for specific stories. Instead, I will grab a science fiction anthology for you and send it to you. So if you're in a position like that and you want to do this, believe you me, it's fun for me. It's not an imposition at all for me. So if you want to do that, you let me know. So this is both an announcement video for New World's November and an offer. If you want me to send you a science fiction anthology, I'd be happy to do that. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. I'm gonna try to remember to leave all the links to my co-hosts down below. We have a great roster of people. Some, I would say, if you were to mush all of the hosts together, I think you'd probably have 400 years of science fiction reading experience, all from all ends of the spectrum. We have people who read a classic hard science fiction. We have people who read very soft science fiction, almost bordering on fantasy. We have people who've read it right from the beginning. We have people who studiously read nothing but crap. Whatever your taste is, we can do it. So I thought I'll remember to leave that down below, and let me know if you need me to send you something. I'd be happy to do it. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.